Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ever get that feeling? After years in the corporate world, you start thinking, is this it? Is there something else out there? Maybe you've even toyed with the idea of building something on your own, calling all the shots. Well, that's what we're diving into today. That shift, that possibility.
Because let's face it, for a lot of folks who've been through that corporate ringer, the whole solopreneur thing, being your own boss, setting your own hours, it's a pretty tempting picture. But as we're going to dig into, getting from that structured corporate gig to a successful solo venture, well, it's not always a straight shot.
Makes sense. And that's where Art Munoz and his Revenue Like Clockwork newsletter come in. We've been poring over his insights, and one idea really jumped out. It's the difference between what he calls an accidental solopreneur versus a deliberate solopreneur. Now, for anyone out there thinking about, or maybe already making that move from corporate life to, running their own micro business, we think this distinction is seriously important.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, it's easy to find yourself self-employed, especially after the pressure cooker of corporate life. Chances are you've got skills that are in demand right away. But what Munoz argues is that without a deliberate plan, you risk just swapping one kind of stress for another. You might even end up feeling like you've got less control than before.
Less control? Wow. Okay, so in this deep dive, we're going to break down Munoz's journey. We'll look at his own experience, starting with the corporate burnout that led to what he calls accidental freelancing. Then we'll get to that pivotal moment when he really understood his unique value. And then we'll trace how he shifted to a much more deliberate approach. Oh, and of course, we'll get into those strategies he lays out for building a business that actually lasts. And importantly, some of the common traps to watch out for along the way. So let's jump in. What does that accidental solopreneur path typically look like, according to Munoz?
Well, it often starts, like it did for him, with just plain exhaustion. Maybe you've put in 15 years, maybe more, in the corporate world. He talks about this feeling of being ground down by office politics, his passion kind of fizzling out from all those soul-sucking tasks. He even mentions his wife not really getting how deep it went, after all those years.
I bet a lot of folks listening can relate to that feeling, that sense that pushing harder, working longer hours is just going to make that burnout hole deeper. You just got to get out.
Absolutely. And that urge to escape, well, it often leads to a quick leap into self-employment, like Munoz did. There's that initial thought, maybe a bit naive, that you can just launch a business overnight. But the reality, boom, you're flooded with work. Suddenly you're doing everything you used to have entire teams for.
Yeah, that whole support system, it's just gone. Poof. You're not just doing the big picture stuff anymore. You're the admin, the marketing whiz, the tech support guru, all of it. And Munoz talks about that feeling, being overwhelmed, but thinking, okay, I'll just learn all this new stuff. There's that initial rush, right? That self-improvement energy.
You got it. That early excitement about mastering new skills, it can be a real motivator. Feels like you're moving forward. But the harsh truth Munoz describes is realizing you've basically become just another freelancer. You're still trading hours for dollars, often swamped with projects that are, at the end of the day, one-off deals.
So calendar's packed. You're busy all the time. But your bank account,
Yeah.
not exactly reflecting all that hustle. You're missing that real control and, crucially, the lasting leverage you might have imagined. It's freedom on paper, maybe, but just a different flavor of pressure in reality. So this is where it gets really interesting. What was that turning point for Munoz, the thing that shifted him off this accidental path?
The real aha moment came during a conversation with his mentor, Dr. Gary North. And Munoz quotes him directly, which is pretty powerful. North said, "Most people simply execute tasks, but you solve problems before your clients even know they exist." Now that direct feedback, it was a game changer.
Wow, that's a really powerful way to put it. To have someone articulate your values so clearly.
Absolutely. It gave Munoz this crystal clear understanding of what he brought to the table. He wasn't just checking boxes. He was anticipating and heading off problems. But here's the catch. That realization hit him at the same time as he recognized a major weakness. Because his problem solving was happening behind the scenes, its value wasn't obvious to his clients.
It's like a paradox, isn't it? You're so good, you make your own contribution practically inviolable. Which raises a big question for everyone listening. Have you really thought about how to package your expertise? Not just selling your time, but showcasing that unique value you bring. How do you make that behind-the-scenes magic visible and therefore valuable?
And that takes us right to the next stage of Munoz's journey. It's a trap a lot of people fall into when they're making this transition, trying to be everything for everyone.
Oh, yeah. I can totally see that. You've built up this whole diverse skill set in your corporate years. So naturally you think, hey, I can do website design, marketing plans, content strategy, you name it, you offer it.
Exactly. The intention makes sense. You want to snag as much business as possible. But the problem, as Munoz points out, is that you end up lacking clarity. Clarity about what you stand for, not just for potential clients, but for yourself, too. You get lost in the sea of generalists.
It's like having a Swiss Army knife, right? Super versatile, but not the best tool for any specific demanding job. And Munoz uses this term, hyper-specialized generalist. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. Think of it like this. You might have specific skills within different areas, let's say social media, email campaigns, SEO. Each one is a specialization to a degree. But if you're offering all of them to a wide range of clients, you're still a generalist in terms of who you serve and what problem you solve. The real power comes from being known for one key solution, not just being kind of good at a bunch of things.
So you're not really known for one impactful thing.
Got it. So how did Munoz solve this? What was the shift away from being this hyper-specialized generalist? He made a choice, a deliberate one. He decided to focus on just one very specific problem for one very specific type of client for a whole year. So instead of broad categories like small businesses or startups, he honed in on a single avatar, a very specific client with unique challenges that his expertise was perfectly suited to solve.
Okay, laser focus, I like it. And what happened? What was the impact?
He says the change was almost instant. Instead of him constantly hunting for clients, they started coming to him. They weren't interested in his general skills anymore. They were looking for his specific insight. They recognized his ability to see problems coming, that sixth sense we talked about. They saw the real value in that proactive approach.
Makes perfect sense. When you're the go-to person for a specific pain point, for a specific audience, you become the obvious choice. Now, once he had that clarity, how did he actually build a business that could last? Especially moving beyond that trap of just billing hourly.
That was another big evolution for him. At first, like a lot of freelancers, Munoz stuck to hourly rates. It felt safe, but he admits he hated that feeling of constantly selling his time. He even tried selling other people's products, but that took a huge hit during the pandemic lockdowns, cost him a big chunk of change. It really highlighted the risk of relying on things outside your control.
Ouch, that's a hard lesson. It really exposes a weak spot in some business models, the ones that depend on external factors.
Totally.
Yeah.
It led him to a big realization. By billing hourly, he was essentially punishing himself for working faster and smarter. The better he got, the more efficient, the more he capped his earnings. Because his income was tied to hours, not to the actual value he delivered, the key was shifting from selling his time, which is limited, to selling results, which is tied to the value he creates.
Totally. It's a whole mindset shift, moving from selling your effort to selling the results you get for your clients. Now, how did this new focus on value and this super specific client, how did that change his marketing?
Well, Munoz realized his early marketing was all about sounding professional, that traditional kind of stiff corporate way. But he saw that the landscape had changed. That corporate image wasn't the gold standard for authenticity anymore.
Yeah, I think people are over that super polished, jargon-filled way of talking. They want something real, something they can connect with.
Right. He realized that to really connect with his ideal client, the corporate escapee, looking for location independence, he needed to speak from the heart, be vulnerable, and talk directly to that one specific avatar, not some vague general audience.
So instead of generic business advice, he's talking about the specific struggles and hopes of someone who's been through corporate burnout, someone who dreams of a remote, independent life.
Precisely. And the results, he says, were remarkable. Those specific people started finding him. Referrals went way up without him having to chase them. He describes it like flipping a switch.
The power of targeted, authentic communication. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't all smooth sailing, he says. What were some of the big mistakes he made early on? And what advice does he give for scaling a solo business, especially for folks coming from a corporate background?
One of his biggest early blunders was trying to do everything himself. He had all these skills from his corporate days, but trying to control every single thing in his solo business led to isolation and eventually big-time overwhelm. He says this tendency, isolating yourself for control, it's really common among micro-entrepreneurs.
That feeling of, if I want it done right, I got to do it myself. but taken to an extreme.
Yeah. So his advice now is very clear. You don't have to be the best at everything. Just be the best at one thing you alone can do for one type of client only. A client who's desperate for that specific solution and who can pay for it. He's a big believer in learning from a proven path, not trying to reinvent everything from scratch.
Makes total sense. Find that one thing you're uniquely brilliant at, the people who desperately need it, and go all in on that. Now, once demand grows, how do you scale without burning yourself out even more?
At first, Munoz thought it was about working harder, but he realized the key was to work better than smarter. He uses the word wiser. He defines wisdom in this context as applying your existing knowledge and understanding effectively. It's knowing which connections to make and, importantly, what specific action to take based on those connections, actively avoiding analysis paralysis. Getting so caught up in research and planning that you never actually do anything. It's like being stuck on a map, studying all the routes, but never starting the journey.
Moving beyond just information to actually applying what you know in a targeted way.
Exactly. And this is where productization comes in. So instead of creating custom solutions for every single client, he developed a signature, repeatable program, a structured framework that delivers consistent, transformative results. This could be a done-for-you service with a clear scope, a coaching program with a set curriculum, or even a digital course that guides clients through a specific transformation. The key is that it's replicable and delivers consistent value, creating predictability, freeing up his time, and ensuring his clients get those reliable outcomes.
Systemizing your core value. I dig it. Now, you mentioned having a strategic mindset. How does that separate the thriving solopreneurs from the ones who are always struggling?
Munoz argues the real difference isn't the specific tactics, your marketing methods, pricing, lead generation. It's about committing to a clear, overarching strategy, moving away from that scattered approach of just trying different things without a central focus. It's the shift from being a freelancer who jumps between one-off projects to becoming a strategy expert in your niche.
Having that long-term vision and a clear roadmap to get there, not just reacting to whatever comes up.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that solopreneurship, despite the name, shouldn't be a solo journey. Real, lasting success often comes from building those meaningful, practical relationships. He talks about his approach to LinkedIn, for example. He sees it as a platform for genuine conversations, building real connections, not just broadcasting content. He finds more value in sharing articles directly in messages and targeted online groups than just making passive posts. It's about the quality of those connections, not just reaching a massive audience. And he's big on referrals, which happen naturally when you're deeply connected in your niche and known for getting results.
When you're the go-to person for a specific problem, those happy clients are your best advocates.
Yeah.
He also talks about debunking some common bad advice out there, right? Like undercharging at the start or taking on any client who will pay.
Oh, yeah. He cautions against charging too little initially, taking on any paying client even if they're not a good fit, trying to scale way too fast before you've got a solid base, or spamming social media with generic automated stuff. His best advice boils down to build a solid, minimal, viable, and monetizable foundation. Then think about scaling. Ultimately, it's about evolving from selling your services hourly to selling a real transformation for your clients.
That's a powerful distinction. So to wrap this up, what's the core message for someone making or thinking about making that jump from the corporate world to solopreneurship?
The question Munoz asks is this: are you just keeping busy, just doing stuff? Or are you intentionally building a business based on your unique, transformative expertise? If you're thinking about going solo, now might be the time to consciously shift your mindset towards wisdom, applying your knowledge strategically, focusing on a specific client with a pressing need and the means to pay for your solution, and fundamentally changing your approach. Are you ready to stop trading hours for dollars and become an empowered, deliberate solopreneur?
Being proactive and intentional, not reactive or accidental. And for those who want to explore these ideas further, Munoz has created the Solo Consultant Empowerment Forum.
Yes, he describes it as a community for freelancers, solo practitioners, coaches, founders, independent consultants, VAs, those corporate escapees who are looking for remote work, location independence, and a greater sense of self-worth in their work. It's designed to be a supportive space, to understand those common struggles and access strategies that work for building a sustainable solo business.
So if this conversation has resonated, if you're serious about this transition or already on the journey and want to avoid those pitfalls, Munoz invites you to check it out. It's free to join, and it could be that breakthrough you're looking for. We'll put a link in the show notes.
The takeaway from Art Munoz is clear. Don't let your post-corporate career be about accidental freelancing. Be deliberate. Be strategic. learn from those who've done it successfully, and build a solo business that uses your unique expertise and avoids those common, often costly, mistakes.
Some great food for thought. Lots to consider if you're navigating this transition or even just thinking about it. Thanks for diving deep with me.
Anytime. It's been a pleasure.
And for everyone listening, what's one thing from this deep dive that's really got you thinking differently? Let that idea simmer. Until our next deep dive.